Hi, and welcome to another video in the RHCSA video series. Today's video is on install and update software packages from Red Hat Network, a remote repository, or from the local file system. So we've installed packages quite a lot in previous videos. Just generally, you may need to install packages to support additional features. So I will go a bit more of a deep dive into DNF and some of the extra features you may want to use. Some people may have worked with Red Hat or Fedora based Linux systems previously and may be more familiar with Yum, but as of Red Hat 8 this is going to be replaced by DNF, so it's best to use that going forward. So all the commands I'll be using will be using the DNF rather than Yum. There's a few packages that still use Yum naming convention, but 99% of it is using DNF now. So as always, let's go to the terminal. Most of the commands will be in sudo, so let's just get a bash shell in sudo. So the first one is to just do a general search, so that will be a DNF search nano, so we can find any packages, any nano packages that are out there in any of our repositories. So the repository is just a location where a collection of software packages are available, and so you could have different repositories with different versions potentially. So you could have a repository for a certain group of systems, and you can have a repository for another group, for instance. Obviously Red Hat provide their own repository, and that provides the most up-to-date packages that they support, and you would then, if you do an update, you would then pull them down from that server. But obviously in an enterprise environment you probably wouldn't want all systems to go straight out the internet to download the updates, because you'd have issues with baselining and stuff like that. Some will have nano version 2.4 and the other ones will have nano version 2.3, so if you have issues you won't know what the issue is being caused by. So you probably have something like a satellite server, which is like an intermediary server that provides like a localized repository that then you're able to manage the versioning of all the software. You could also be a bit more simple and just have a completely local repository, and I'll show you how to do that. And it's just a very simple repository that you can then target your other machines at. So what we do first is we just run through all these commands, and then I'll show you how to create your own repository towards the end of the video. So we've done a search, and we can see the return. We have exact matches of nano, and we've got a summary matched for this spacewalk server. I couldn't tell you what that does, but that will be something you have to look up if you're interested in it. We can do a DNF list, and then we can do a pattern match. So we can do DNF list NA and then star, and anything that starts with NA and then has pretty much anything at the end, we can find it. So we've obviously got a few matches, and Nautilus. We've got Nano, of course, itself matching, and you can see these @ signs are the exact package groups it's being matched against. So you can see it in here; it's all being matched against there. Okay. So if you want to find out if there's any disabled repositories, you can do this. So it's DNF repo list all, and it'll list all the repositories that are configured on your system, but also there will list the ones that are currently disabled. So with Red Hat you're going to get a lot of additional tools, and most of them will be disabled. I think I only have a couple enabled. Yeah, you can see the two ones in green there that are enabled, but you can see there's a very long list of repos you can actually use, and you can also just do a DNF repoinfo, and that will just give you the info on the repos you are currently using. So sort of the number of packages, the size, the base URL, how long time it actually expires, so how long you have to keep refreshing it, etc., and the actual file name for the repo itself. So that's where it's actually being stored, and that's the actual configuration file. So we can actually look at that, just do a VI on it, for example, and we can have a look at kind of how they're set up. So this is like the repository name. There's like a high level name there just to split them up, and then you've got a name, like a nice name for displaying here. The base URL is where it goes to download. It's obviously got a release server to pull out the certain version of Red Hat Linux 8. You've got enabled 0 in this case. GPG check is just checking if you've got the particular keys. This is the GPG key. Is it using SSL, and you want to verify it's using the correct certificate. And you've got client keys and stuff like that, and metadata expiry dates, so when you need to re-download the latest packages. So that gives you a bit more information about the repo. Let's do a clear again. So if we want to find them in more information about a particular package, perhaps we can do DNF info and then nano. And each time, obviously, it takes a little while to just go and pull that information because they're very large. We can see it's actually currently installed in my system. You can see the version, the release, the architecture, the size of the package, the actual source RPM, what repository it's in, so at system, so it's actually part of the repository group, and the summary, URL for a bit more information, the license, etc. Yes, it's pretty good to give you a bit of information. Again, if you're not sure what the version of the package is, you can do DNF info on the package. Okay, so to do an actual install, it's just DNF install and then the package name. As we know, I've already got it installed, but we can just do this for example. And it'll go through and request if it's installed. You say yes, and it'll just reinstall it. So if you want to do the inverse of that, perhaps remove the package, we can do a DNF remove nano, and that will remove the package. And yeah, pretty simple there. I will just do the inverse, so let's do DNF install nano for completeness. Cool, so that's installed. Actually, one thing I want to mention while I'm here, it's just a little bit of the naming convention for the packages. So nano is the name, this is the version, this part here, this is the actual release type, so it's Enterprise Linux 8, and this is the architecture. So it's always in that format. You'll always see that particular format. So it's just something to be aware of, that's all. We can use DNF to find out what provides a particular file. So I've got a file being nano in this case, which is the nano application in the bin directory, and we can ask DNF what provides that, which package provides that executable in this case, and we can see it's been matched against nano. Surprisingly enough. Okay, so I've done a little local copy of nano. This would be for an example here. So sometimes you may have a vendor or the software provider to provide a fix, and they provide you directly with the RPM file or the package file. You will need to install this locally, and a lot of vendors recommend you use RPM to install it. I wouldn't recommend that because in some cases you may not have the actual requirements to actually install the package, and the package installation may pass, but it'll be missing libraries or another dependency that will cause the package to not function correctly. So the best way always is to use DNF, then local install, and then the RPM. So in this case it was nano, wasn't it? So yeah, we'll do a DNF local install nano and the actual package, full package name. So I'm actually in a directory where the packages exist, so we just do that. We should actually have it already installed, but in this case, yeah, we'd actually be installing the exact version we want. So the package is already installed, that exact version, but we can use that to install locally. So it will get all the prerequisites and all the requirements for the package and install it correctly. There's also such a thing as a package group. So there may be I don't know, system tools or development tools you may want to install, or something like that. Also stuff like a LAMP, which is the option to have a complete web server all in one package. So lots of things come in packages. So you can do a DNF groups list, and that will push out a list of all the groups that are available. So we can see the environment groups. So these actually will set up the server in different ways. So custom operating system. So the currently environment group we installed was workstation. We've also got the development tools installed, but we've also got all these available groups here. So for a good example, let's install the system tools, security tools, sorry. So we just do DNF group install in double quotes, because it's got space in it, and then to close the double quotes with the system tools. And then that will go and download all the required packages and install them. So you can see there's quite a few in that list, and you just download and install. Pretty much as any other, we can just notice it's got quite a few packages all in one big group. Awesome. And to remove, strangely enough, it's pretty much the same as any other. Just got to add the group option, group remove, brackets, the package name, the package group name, and remove. Cool. Now I want to cover a bit about the history. So DNF, and obviously back in the day Yum as well, keeps a history of all the installations you do, so then you can have review those, and you can undo particular actions or redo particular actions if you need them to happen again. So we can do a DNF history list, and we can see what we've done. You can see way back when I first built the system, we can see the initial install. We can see there was 1,457 packages altered, and you can see the various different lines. So we can see there's updates, installed. So it's just the install and remove of Nano I did earlier. You can see the group reinstall and remove of system tools. We can see like the install of Stratis and stuff back in the old videos I've done. So we can actually ask the DNF to redo a particular action. So we can do, perhaps if we want to, let's do the undo the installation of Nano. So we do undo 22, and we can see it's removing the package. If we do a clear again, and then do a DNF history list again, and we can actually do let's do a history redo at 22 now. So DNF history redo to 2022, and now it's reinstalling the package. So it's pretty simple. So it may be good if you've done a large update and something's gone wrong in the system. You can actually just do an undo, and it will revert all the changes you've made. So it's a really good option to have, and good to know, definitely. Right, so the next thing is to create our own repository. So the first thing before anything else, you need to have at least a single RPM for your repository. So I've got that nano RPM. So there's no repository without at least an RPM to a package to install. So we've got that at least. And then we need the DNF utils. So DNF install DNF-utils. And that's just literally the utilities for DNF to give us the additional options to add repositories, disable repositories, and stuff like that. So if you, for example, I don't know, there's a particular package out there you need to get, and you can't get it from the current Red Hat repository, or you've got a vendor that provides their own repository for their particular application, you will use this. You can use this yumconfig manager, obviously using the old naming convention in this case, and then you can use it to add repositories and disable and enable repositories within the DNF configuration. So it's literally as easy as yumconfig manager, and then --add -repo, and then the repository URL. So it'll be like https repository repo dot, I don't know, test.com. Okay, you'd add repo, and that would add it into the configuration. And next time you do a DNF update or DNF install, it will actually go and then pull out the packages from that repository. That's a pretty easy one. To do you can also enable a repository from here. So it's yumconfig manager, disable repository, disable repo, and a repository. So just repository name. So it might be like RHEL 8 test, for example. That might be the repository name, and it's whatever that heading you've given in the brackets I showed you earlier in the repository. To enable, we simply run the same command. So it's yum. Let's just do a clear here. It's getting a bit messy. So yum config manager -- enable repo, and then the repository name, repo1, whatever it is. Cool. Pretty simple that. So let's now create our own repository. So DNF install create repo. So first thing is installing a package that allows you to create repos or repositories. So there's a few packages it installs. I didn't do that. Cool. So that's installed. It's all easy. So now we want to create a repository directory. So I'll just do make dir. Let's do root and then local underscore repo. Nice and unique. So let's copy that file, the nano directory. So cp root nano to root local repo, and then let's create the database. So cd, we can just do it from here. So let's do create repo -- database, and then root local underscore repo. And we can see directory walk started. It's found one package, and we've got a repository data. It's created a little DB to support the repository. To now add the repository to yum config manager, add repo, and then because it's locally on this directory, we can do file and then // but you can also do stuff like HTTPS or FTP. So you could potentially make this server an FTP server or even a HTTP server to provide the repository, and then obviously you'd have to create a server around that to actually do the sharing and stuff like that. But yeah, this is just an example. We just do a local file repository and then local repo. So it's just doing that configuration now, and it's added the repo. So we should now, if we go to vi and then etc yum config, no, I think it's yum repos d, and then we should have one. What we have is root local repo.repo, and you can see it's created here. So name is created by DNF config manager from file. So you could probably have a nicer name than that, maybe. We could have it just call it local server repo or something. Oops. Local server repo, and let's just call it, I'll keep it all like that. Let's just do some nice capitals so it looks a bit nice, and just call it local repo. That'll do. Right, quit. Okay, so we do a DNF update, and we can see the name's record update there. So local server repo works for us. So to disable the repo, we just do yum config manager disable repo, and then The name was, I think, local underscore repo. That's completed. So if we do a yum update again now, let's have a look at the repositories in the list. Just the two now. Yep, awesome. And then we can just do the inverse. I'm just doing enable. Oops, enable. And there we go. So if I do a DNF repo info now, we should be able to see 3 repos now if everything's all configured correctly. Yep, so we've got repo ID, we can see it's got 1 package in there, you can see when it's last updated, you can see the repo base URL and the repo file name and all that. So that's pretty much it, so it's all working. Obviously if you had newer versions of a particular package in there, you did an update, you pick up those packages to your update. That's about it for this video. I hope it's been useful as always. I've just popped the usual bits and pieces on the screen, so I've got the information about hosting for the VPS if that's something is interested for you. It just allows you to use Red Hat while on the go, so if that's something that you're interested, maybe not so much nowadays, but if you're on the go you can still use practice Red Hat. The next one is Sophos Home Antivirus. There's a free product which is one of the best products out there for AV. It allows you to have 5 devices in the one single pane, so not many antiviruses provide that information, so you can actually say I'm protecting these 3 Windows machines and I can see them all and where the viruses have been detected and stuff like that, and you can do all the exclusions and all this configuration all from a single website. You've also got my TeePublic, so that's all got the information, my merchandise if that's something you're interested in, and finally my Ko-fi page. Yeah, any donations to that would be absolutely awesome. Oh, just finally to mention I'm starting a Discord server, so that's just somewhere for you guys to ask any questions. So it's completely free of charge. Just come and join and ask questions. I'll try and help out as much as I can. All the best. I'll catch you next video. Thank you.